External Relations, Diversity and Inclusion at Boston College Law School. Where one of my charges actually is that I am responsible for assisting all of my students of color and backgrounds with the matriculation, not only to BC Law School, but also to the legal practice as well. Prior to joining Boston College Law School, I was a trial attorney myself for approximately 12 years, including 5 years as a prosecutor, state prosecutor, ensuring justice, according to Ms. Brown. And I went to Georgetown University undergrad and Georgetown Law School, double player. Or as Jay-Z says, pour your chick in the house.
I'm from Brooklyn, so I guess I'll take that Jay-Z. Exactly. Hi, everybody. I'm Paula Edgar. If you haven't seen me running around today or yesterday, I have my own business. It's called PGE LLC. I'm a consultant, coach, and a speaker. I'm also the president-elect of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association in New York City. When I did practice, I practiced civil rights law, but I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to empower students and young attorneys, and so I do that with my business every single day. If you want to know more about me, if you want to, you can just Google me or tweet me. Paula Edgar. I want to get started. We have a lot of things to cover. All right, Deans, you ready? Okay, all right. Our first question that we're going to pose to, hold on, just joking. I wanted to make sure you were paying attention. The first thing we're going to do is have each of the deans introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Dean Pierre and go this way.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. It is afternoon. John Pierre, Southern University Law Center. I'm the interim chancellor at the Southern University Law Center. I'm a Louisianian, born in Louisiana, graduate of Southern University and A&M College. I have a master's degree also from Texas Tech and a law degree from Southern Methodist University Law School in Dallas, Texas. I was a former JAG officer, and I've done some very interesting things in life. But the most rewarding thing I've done is be a law professor at the Southern University Law Center since 1990.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dan Holly, and I'm going in 3 minutes to take you in the way back machine for about a half century of experience with legal education. I'm going to call this my third year transformative, so you'll know that a lot of times you don't know what you're going to do for a while, and then you do realize what you are going to be for about 40 years. So I started out in high school in a school that was a engineering college preparatory school. I was sure I was going to be an engineer, but we had shops. I don't know, does everybody know what a shop is? You do. So I was in a my third shop was a foundry shop. And there was a lot of hot metal and molten fire going on, and I decided I don't really want to be an engineer. So then I went to college at the State University of New York, and I was a history major, and I didn't really know what I wanted to be, but in my third year, I took the LSAT, and I got into law school. And I went to the same law school that I went to my undergrad, to the State University of New York. And when I went to law school, I was sure I wanted to be a practicing lawyer, either in litigation or in my own law firm. But in my third year in law school, my law school offered me a job as a recruiter while I was in law school. I was offered a job as the national director of the Law Student Civil Rights Research Council. I had an opportunity to become, to go to an advanced law degree with an LLM program. And I decided after all of that, contrary to my earlier expectations, that I would become an academic, a law professor. And on that decision, I got stuck. And I've been a law professor for the last 44 years. I have become dean of the law school and associate dean multiple times. And I think that one of the things that you realize as an academic is that, especially at a professional school, that your biggest benefit is in the ability to actually mold hundreds and then eventually, for me, thousands of folks who are mini-me's and mighty-me's, and it's been a very rewarding journey.
Dean.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Jones. I'm the interim dean at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, the College of Law in Orlando, Florida. I got my JD from the University of Florida. I got my LLM in tax from the University of Florida as well. I practiced in the Army for a little while, then I got out and I went back to the University of Florida. I served as in-house counsel at the University of Florida. Then I went to Chicago. I was general counsel at a small college called Columbia College Chicago downtown, where I got really involved in mostly the tax aspects of nonprofit organizations. After that, I went and I found that I was writing more than I was practicing, so I went to the University of Pittsburgh. I taught federal income tax and partnership tax and nonprofit income tax for a while. I got tenure. I became associate dean of academic affairs. Then after my fourth daughter was born, my wife said we got to go back home, so we came back to Florida, where I taught at Stetson University College of Law for a while, and I swore that I would never ever go back into law school administration. And then I got sort of drafted or recruited to go to Florida A&M University College of Law. Best decision of my life. I'm happy to be there now. I love the bright, young, diverse minds that come through our doors. I have a bunch of true believer colleagues, and I really just couldn't be happier. I'm happy to be here today, and so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Broder, the proud dean of the University of the District of Columbia's David A. Clark School of Law in Washington, D.C. I say your tax dollars at work because we're public. When I was a first-year law student at Georgetown, I was on my way home one night from contracts class. I was pulled over by the police. They ran away for making an illegal right-hand turn. They ran a whales check and found that I had 12 unpaid parking tickets. And so they arrested me and took me to the 2nd District Police Headquarters and strip searched me, put me in a paddy wagon, took me to the Women's Detention Center, strip searched me again, locked me up with 20 other people, one of whom sexually assaulted me in the middle of the night. The ACLU took my case and made a federal case of it. And I was one of the 5 named plaintiffs with 4 people of color in a case that ended the practice of strip searching for traffic tickets. Illegally or not paying those 12 tickets. And when the ACLU first contacted me, I felt like a criminal, but they made me a soldier in the cause. And I've been in that cause for the rest of my life. I became a criminal defense lawyer, and I spent 10 years trying the hell out of cases, 2,000 clients, teaching law students how to do that and shaking it up in the courthouse. I am a past president of the ACLU in DC, the Access to Justice Commission, and a number of other things. I got hired by an interracial couple, Jean and Edgar Kahn, who founded the Antioch School of Law. Jean Camper Kahn, who was a beautiful black Baltimorean debutante and activist, said to me, Shelley, we're putting you on the admissions committee. Your job is to go out and find 150 of the worst troublemakers you can find who are going to make social change. And I feel like I'm still doing that. And that's why I'm here. Really looking forward to getting to know some of you troublemakers. The only other thing I want to say is I have, like you and all of us, have loved being a lawyer. I've been a litigator, a professor. I've run a legislation clinic. I've gotten to do a lot of social justice with a lot of true believers and hard-charging social justice advocates. Life is sweet.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let's try that again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, that's much better. I'm Danielle Holly Walker, and I'm proud to be the Dean and a Professor of Law at Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C. I started as dean at Howard in July of 2014. Prior to that, I was associate dean for academic affairs and the South Carolina education professor of law at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, not too far from here. My story of how I came to be dean is and the professor is a little bit unusual in the sense that I knew I wanted to be a law professor when I was very young. Definitely knew I wanted to be a lawyer and wanted to be a law professor when I was probably maybe 6, 7 years old. That's because I spent a lot of time hanging out with this guy right there. So Danny Holly is my father, and I grew up in Thurgood Marshall School of Law, basically. So when other kids, were on the playground, a lot of times I was hanging out at the law school. And I loved hanging out at the law school. Loved Thurgood Marshall and admired the students who went there, admired the faculty that I met, and I knew very early on that I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to Yale for college, I went to Harvard for law school. When I graduated, I clerked on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals for Chief Judge Carl Stewart in Shreveport, Louisiana, and then I went into a big corporate law practice. So I practiced at Fulbright and Jaworski in Houston in a corporate litigation practice where I represented corporate clients doing commercial litigation. Then I decided to go ahead and pursue my career in academia. I taught first at Hofstra Law School in New York on Long Island, and then I got married. My husband is from South Carolina, so we moved to South Carolina, and that's how I ended up being a Gamecock for 9 years, which I really enjoyed. And then there was this opening for the deanship at Howard, and I felt very strongly connected to Howard. Had spent a lot of time studying Howard Law School, especially when I was in college. I wrote my senior thesis on Howard Law School and felt highly connected to the historical legacy of that law school, especially the civil rights lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and Spotswood Robinson and Oliver Hill, Pauline Murray, and many others. And so that drew me to Howard, and I have never been happier. Howard is an extraordinary university, an extraordinary law school, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about it as we continue this panel.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Phyllis Craig Taylor, and I'm the dean at North Carolina Central University Law School. So I bring you greetings from Eagle Land, and I know that we have a few Aggies and others in the group today, so know that we're all friends. Not in any competitive sports arena, so we can be friends. Well, I want to tell you just a little bit about my journey, but I want to start with the most interesting fact, and it's one that my law students love, and hopefully I'll get a chance to meet some of you individually later today, and hopefully up in Durham, if some of you enroll at the law school. And I start this story by saying I am a high school dropout. And you hear about the school to prison pipeline, but there is a way to disrupt that pipeline. And you can disrupt it with education and having people who will support you. So over and over again, I tell people, well, my father was a sharecropper, and he had a 3rd grade education. My mother, a ninth grade education, that I'm the baby of 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls. And still, I sit here before you today from a farm in Alabama where nobody would have, as my grandmother said to me, even imagined it. So never doubt what you can achieve. Because I attended undergraduate school at the University of Alabama, and I stayed in the dormitory that was right next door to Foster Hall. And if you can remember, George Wallace stood at Foster Hall to say, never. And so I walk by that plaque every day, and I just give it a little rub. For the Alabama Supreme Court after graduating from law school, and my judge that I clerked for was Mark Kennedy, and Mark was married to Peggy Sue. Peggy Sue Wallace, and if you know Peggy, that history, Peggy is the daughter of George Wallace. So we're bringing that circle on around, George, bringing it around. So he wouldn't have ever thought that I'd show up at the University of Alabama, matriculate there and graduate, go on to law school at the university.
Levels of leadership. Thank you for sharing all of your stories, Tracy.
All right, so panelists, the first question that we have for you today is, could you please briefly reflect upon the unique mission, history, and contributions of your law schools in producing Black lawyers and the contributions that your institutions have made to the Black community in terms of fighting for social justice and providing access to lawyers that Black people normally.
We're going to start with Dean Holly.
Good. All right, so, yes. So Howard University was founded in 1867. Howard University's law department started in 1869 by John Mercer Langston. Obviously, as I just said, what the law school has been most known for and what we do today is really based on 3 principles. So the first is academic excellence. We believe that every student who comes to Howard will be able to achieve great things in their legal career. We promote them being able to achieve in all areas of the law. Someone said that we had someone who was interested in tax law. Last year, we just started a partnership with Ernst & Young, where Ernst & Young pays for 4 of our graduates to get their LLM degrees in tax, and then they hire them on for 4 years to Ernst & Young. So we have a very strong background in lots of different areas. Tax law, we have an intellectual property center, the Howard Intellectual Property Program, and environmental law. So those are some things that a lot of people don't know about us, and I think our core mission has always been leading the fight for social justice. So our graduates obviously go out and they do voting rights practice, criminal defense work, and we feel that our mission is always to create a generation of leaders that will go out and know that they have the ability to change the world, right? And they do that in a lot of different ways. Some of them are changing it in the corporate space. So we are a national law school. We recruit law students from all over the country. This year, our class of 2018, we have 73 different colleges represented in that class. We have people from 10 different countries in our class, and I think one of the things that we do is we send a significant amount of our class out to practice in large corporate law firms. So when you hear about the large corporate law firms in New York and DC, like Sullivan and Cromwell, Covington and Burling, those very large corporate law firms that are in the large urban centers, we send over, probably about 25% of our graduates go into that kind of practice. And we have about 100 corporate law firms that come and recruit to Howard. We also have about 150 nonprofits that come and recruit at Howard. So one of the things that we're most proud of is that we have an extremely high placement rate for our students. Our students that are employed after graduation 9 months at about 90%. So we are thrilled by that and very happy with that. And last year, National Law Journal ranked Howard as number 22 go-to law school in the country for placing students in corporate law firms, and we're considered to be the number 20 law school in the country for placing students in nonprofits. So we work very hard to place our students in high-paying and also really high-worth jobs, jobs that they feel that they are getting a real benefit from and that they're going out and making a difference in the world.
Thank you, Dean. I just want to get to some of the.
I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
As Paulette Brown said when she was up here, and she just came to Howard a few weeks ago and gave a fantastic Constitution Day speech. Charles Hamilton Houston, who is known for saying that a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society, we believe that one of our core values is that we believe that lawyers, no matter if you're practicing in corporate law or if you're practicing in the nonprofit social justice space, that you should be making a difference in the world. And we impart that kind of idea of leadership and making a difference in every student, regardless of what they decide to practice.
Thank you.
Yes, well, what we talk about at Southern University Law Center is that we're preparing lawyer leaders for the 21st century. One, we're one of the most diverse law schools in the country. We have students from about 89 universities, 27 states, 2 foreign countries, But most important, we talk about our impact in terms of social justice and other areas. So for example, in Louisiana, it has the highest number of African American judges in the state, in the United States, because our graduates started a litigation called Clark versus Edwards that essentially allowed for minority judges to be elected in the state of Louisiana at a higher rate than any other state in the country. And we also talk about our impact from the standpoint of our professors. So for example, 10 years ago, our professors were involved in litigation in the very first case against FEMA called McWaters versus FEMA after Hurricane Katrina. So what we try to do is we try to involve our students in a lot of different activities. We have a study abroad program where we're trying to get students to understand that their impact is a global impact. And also involved in social justice issues. For example, with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, we are engaged in an election protection project at this particular time. But we also do all the stuff on the other end. For example, we have at Walmart Corporation, the executive vice president and senior counsel for tax matters, the Southern University of Law Center graduate. So we do it in different ways. We encourage that diversity, and we tell students that you can be anything you want to be and go anywhere you want to go from Southern University of Law Center.
Thank you, Dean Holland.
Our law school has been around for approximately 70 years. We're one of the few law schools that actually has a historical start related to a Supreme Court case, a very famous Supreme Court case called Sweat. And in that case, the decision was made that our law school could not be equal to the University of Texas Law School because of the history of the University of Texas Law School and the fact that we were just starting. And so one of the things that we've been about for the last 70 years is taking a huge space in the public life of Texas. We have over 5,000 living graduates, and we have over 3,200 graduates who are currently practicing law in the state of Texas. We spend a lot of time nurturing a public discourse and getting people interested in public life. As you saw today, we had a congressman here, Hank John, who was a graduate of the law school. We have another congressman in Texas named Al Green. We have over 100 judges, and our state legislators, our state legislature in Texas is full of TSU and TMSL graduates. So if you're interested in a public life in law, a life of public service, we are one of the law schools who probably makes a very significant contribution, both in Texas and throughout the country, to participating in the public life of schools and the public life of what goes on in the legislatures and in the courts throughout the country. One statistic that you should have some familiarity with is that over the course of the last 5 years, we are about 5% of the enrollment of all the law schools in Texas, but we produce over 40% of all the newly licensed African-American lawyers in the state of Texas. We are the school that is the resource for diversity in Texas and throughout the country. And when John mentioned that they were a school of diversity, we are the #1 school in the country for diversity. We have a significant population both of African-American students and professors, as well as a significant proportion of Hispanic students and professors. So our school is reflective currently of what America looks like in 2015.
Thank you. Dean Butler?
Hi, everybody, again. So my law school, Antioch School of Law, where I was hired, I told you a little bit about, was adopted by the District of Columbia. We became the public law school, the University of the District of Columbia. So it's affordable. It's $11,000 for DC residents, and you can become a DC resident in a year. And it's $22,000. Our idea is to train public interest lawyers. You can't amass a ton of student debt and actually be a social justice public interest lawyer. You just can't do it. So it has to be affordable and accessible. We have a twofold mission: to recruit and enroll students from racial, ethnic, and other backgrounds traditionally underrepresented at the bar. Is part one. We're ranked by U.S. News and World Report as the second most diverse law school. All of our schools actually are amazingly diverse. I mean, they're all great schools. You should come to all of us. You really should. The second part of our mission is to represent the legal needs of low-income residents of the District of Columbia to the maximum extent feasible through the school's legal clinics. We're ranked 7th by U.S. News and World Report. Georgetown's ranked 1st, but they're $56,000 a year, you know what I'm saying? So, that's an option. Our law school, so we have a pervasive experiential learning pathway to the profession. The first day of law school, you take law and social justice. It's the 2 weeks before classes begin. You meet lawyers for the homeless, you debate immigration policy, all of that. You do 40 hours of community service in the first year. You do 2 required live client clinics where you do a total of 700 hours learning how to practice law. And the beneficiaries are poor people in DC, people with special education needs, low-income taxpayers, people fighting illegal rent increases, tenant organizations trying to purchase and renovate their buildings. You know, we have a low-income taxpayer clinic that sends people forth to do tax law, but understanding the needs of people in poverty with tax law, the working poor. We have externship programs, we have practicums, and we do a capstone project of service learning where our students went to New Orleans after Katrina for years, helping folks with the Road Home project. My team walked 39 people out of jail 18 months after Katrina, who've been locked up longer than they would have been had they been sentenced and given the biggest sentence they could get, just locked up. So, you know, our law school is going to prepare you to practice law, and our graduates go into public interest law in droves, but they also go into firms, small and medium-sized firms for the most part, and they're ready. They're ready to hang out that shingle, and they're not buried in debt, which is a wonderful thing. I just want to, one last thing. I just got back from Cuba, where we forged the first memorandum of understanding of any law school with the University of Havana, where Fidel Castro went. And there's a big tank in front of it, and we're going to be sending our first group in January to Cuba for an intercession, and then we'll be developing programs going forward. It's a cool place. Thank you, Dean. Do you have to?
Well, at North Carolina Central, if you show up on our campus, you're going to see repeatedly banners that read "Truth in Service." I'm going to talk just a little bit about what that means to us at the law school. As a mission, we started out with the understanding from our university founder, Dr. Shepherd, that we had to be a gateway to opportunity. And the way that we have defined that is that we had to be a law school that would graduate attorneys who would go on to first. So we can chronicle the list of first. So if you look across the state, especially even in this Connecticut, what you're going to find over and over again are graduates of that law school who have gone on to be pioneers. So you're going to find the first U.S. attorney, African American, in the South, graduate of the law school. You're gonna find the first U.S. congressman coming out of Georgia since Reconstruction, African American, graduate of North Carolina Central University. We sit in Atlanta, the first African American mayor, City of Atlanta, graduate of North Carolina Central University. So how do we do that? It's an intentional pathway that starts with a bridge program the week before orientation, takes you through orientation, all the way out through graduation, where we expose you to what we call a passport program. So it's an intentional training in leadership, problem solving, and advocacy. So it's leadership, problem solving, and advocacy. So the passport program takes you through the leadership portions, helps you with the problem solving, and then we have capstone experiences. So we have 14 different clinics, the traditional civil and criminal litigation clinics, but that goes all the way through the transactional areas, including tax. We have the tax certificate program. We just launched a new intellectual property law institute because in our state, we have so many people who are losing their intellectual property rights. They're being infringed upon and they're being stolen, and we are addressing that in our patents and our trademark clinics. Low-income taxpayer, and it just goes on and on. So starting with leadership, moving you through problem solving, ending with advocacy. Last year alone, we represented over 4,000 individuals through our live client clinic, in person, or through our virtual justice program.
Dean, do you know?
Florida A&M University College of Law in Orlando really is the father and mother of all the other state university law schools in Florida. A young man named Virgil Hawkins wanted to go to law school back before I was even born. He applied to the University of Florida. They said, "You are well qualified except that you're black and you can't come here. We'll give you money to go elsewhere." And he said, "No, that's not acceptable." He sued the state. The state said, "Well, we'll make FAMU a law school. We'll make a law school at FAMU. You can go there." He said, "Fine, but I'm a taxpayer in the University of Florida. I'm sorry, in the state of Florida. I want to go to the University of Florida." He fought that battle. In the meantime, when they did set up FAMU Law School in 1949, that was the second public law school in the state. We started graduating students, and at the time, women weren't really going to law school in droves either, so we became fairly popular. The state took notice of that, and as they lost in court against Virgil Hawkins, they said, "You know what, something big is going on at FAMU, let's shut them down, take all their library books, and give them to this new law school right across the street at Florida State University." So we really forced the University of Florida to grow up and become a top-tier law school. Then we kind of gave birth to Florida State University. They became a top-tier law school. And then, I guess 40 years later, after they had taken our law school from us, and after they saw that we were successful in graduating people like Congressman Alcee Hastings, Senator Arthenia Joyner, State Senator Arthenia Joyner, they finally gave us back our law school. And in the enabling legislation, we are tasked with the duty to increase diversity in the legal profession in the state of Florida and nationwide. Recently, the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice issued a report that showed that in the Central Florida area, which is a very red area, I think President Obama is probably the first Democrat to carry that part of the state in two consecutive presidential elections. In the Central Florida area, I don't want to say they, but the school system, in conjunction with the police department, arrests children between the ages of 5 and 10 years old more than any other part of the state, including Dade County. Indeed, twice the amount of arrests in our area of the state. So recently, we called the community together at our law school. to bring attention and not just that, to look for a solution to that problem. I want Lundy Langston right there. I want you to stand up, stand up, stand up. She takes her students every semester to the Department of Juvenile Justice lockup facility to show our students the children that are locked up in this pipeline to prison. Last week we had a special rapporteur from the Inter-American Human Rights Commission to take testimony on human rights abuses in the United States, especially involving the Black Lives Matter movement. We are on the forefront of social justice, but also economic justice in Florida. Florida is a very wealthy state, and we're not sharing in that pie at the right level. And our law school is trying to change that. We have graduated more African American attorneys just in the 12, 14 years that we've been reopened than all the other law schools combined.
Thank you, Dean. Okay. All right, now that you've heard from all of the deans about the history of their schools, about what they have to offer currently, we really want to start delving into some of the issues that I know that you want to hear about as well. But I want to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, remember the hashtag for today is HBCU Pre-Law Summit. I know that we reminded you yesterday, we're reminding you again. Secondly, I'm going to ask the panel that we're not going to have everybody answer all the questions going forward. We're going to just kind of jump on in, and the next question is going to be, please share the very real issues and challenges currently facing your law school as an HBCU law school. I think these attendees really want to know what type of things that you guys are facing right now. And so I'm going to ask you, any one of you that would like to answer the question to jump on in. Run on in those challenges.
No, I'd love to share one, and it's not a unique challenge. I think it's one that law schools have faced before. At our law school, because we have a civil litigation clinic, we look for the cutting edge issues that we think may have some impact on a more systemic or institutional basis. So we have filed the lawsuit in our clinic against the Durham Police Department. That's a real challenge because we have some legislators in our state who do not believe that we should be on the forefront of that particular fight. We're still there, and we're going to take that case through to the end. So that's a unique place, I think, that you will find HBCUs occupying, is that we don't shy away from the controversial issues of the day. I mean, we challenge our students all the time. You know, it's all about who will you stand with and what will you stand for. So we have to model that. So I would say that's one unique challenge that I think that we're facing right now is a lot of critique, a lot of criticisms, and a lot of threat around resources because of the positions that we're taking.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go with resources in a little bit different way. You know, we're a public school, and a lot of us share that. And so you have your good years and your bad years. When resources are good, when your city or your state is doing very well, then you get a lot more resources. When it's not so good, it's not so good. And so that's a real challenge that we face all the time. I'm delighted to say that the DC Council, the legendary Marion Barry passed away, and one of our alums took his seat. And we have huge support from the DC Council, the legislation branch in DC now. And we always have, and so these are wonderfully good times. And part of it is because we have a legislation clinic, and we place students throughout the Congress, but also throughout the DC Council, and they give 400 hours through their summer, we pay their summer fellowships to go work there in addition to the clinics. So they know the work and they love us. This summer they just came up with a plan to introduce funding to give us an elder law clinic so that we can build our capacity to represent seniors. But it's a challenge because, you know, when times are tough, or students, get involved in legislative projects where there's a battle between legislators, you can get kicked to the curb. And that's a very scary issue along the same lines you're talking about.
I'd say one challenge, and this is something that is to the benefit of every student in this room, is that law schools all over the country are really struggling to recruit enough students to fill up their classes. That's something that you should know. So as law schools, it is it's a market in which we are really working really hard to recruit a lot of students. And I would say for you, what that means is you need to really research your law schools a lot. So once you decide where you're applying, and even before you decide where you're applying, really think about what is this law school offering to me on the front end and what are they offering on the back end. And so when Shelley talks about that is very real. If you know you want to be a prosecutor or be in criminal defense work, you know you're not going to make a lot of money, really ask yourself, where can I have the lowest tuition or who will give me the best scholarship? And know that those law schools are in competition for you. So you don't have to accept the first offer, right? Even though as law school deans, that's what keeps us up at night, is the idea that we are competing for students. As a student, you should know that you should try to get the best offer you can. And so that means both tuition, scholarships, but on the back end, asking the question of how many of these students go out and get jobs? How many of them go out and get jobs in which they can pay their loans? And then asking the question, I will say, of our majority institutions, don't ask the question just about students in general, but ask about placement of their African American students. Because I think so often law schools will give you the placement number and they won't tell you how helpful they really are in helping to place their students of color. And those are the hard questions, but as the consumers, as the students, those are the questions that I feel like you really need to be asking, and some of those are challenges for us as law schools.
Okay. My last question? All right, so that being said, which is a good leeway into this, could you please just, again, briefly, because I know we're stuck a little bit for time, we're getting that sign. Are there any common misconceptions, I should say, that about HBCUs that you would like to just address or correct? How about everyone, give me one and keep one rolling?
Yes, that you won't be successful if you attend an HBCU undergraduate institution and the HBCU law school. That's the biggest misconception. And all you have to do is go down to Florida and see Willie Gary.
I think the continuing major issue that HBCU law schools have had is what I would call the perception bias. Most of the schools that you talk about, they are always talking about what's a tier 1 school, what's their ranking, all of those kind of things they discuss. But the real question is your school about excellence? Do you produce graduates such as Ricky Anderson and the 2 folks who are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this evening? Do you produce folks who are able to actually excel and play leadership roles? Notwithstanding the notion that folks talk about 4th-tier law schools, you can't let other folks define who you are. When you go to these schools, you should expect and demand excellence, and that's what all the schools here, I believe, are about, and the ways that they discuss it. And I think that's an important thing that has to be dealt with up front.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. I think that we have to have the courage to define our own measure of success. We're just in the first post-accreditation period of our law school, and when we were fighting for our accreditation, one of the things that we were criticized for was our, I guess the way I would phrase it is our under-appreciation for the LSAT. I mean, this is a standardized test and it is culturally biased, and everybody knows that African Americans typically score probably 10 or 12 points below other folk on the LSAT, and as part of our accreditation battle, it was suggested to us that we needed to not accept certain persons who scored at a certain level. I won't tell you what that level is, but we had to fight to say no. I mean, the LSAC itself says that the LSAT is not the end all. It's not the complete measure of the person, and yet I think in practice, and at least from the people who like to judge other schools and the rankings and so forth, that's what it's all about to them. It's the LSAT. That and the other issue that I think is common to HBCUs and all law schools indeed is this pedagogical method that has prevailed in law schools since Langdellian, since Harvard came about. Too many law schools rely on one single exam to label you for the rest of your career, and we don't do that at FAMU. So we fight that tendency.
Thank you.
I think that one fear is that you won't get the help you need to be successful because we're under-resourced. So many HBCUs are under-resourced, and that's just not right. I think
schools in general.
no, that's right. But I think our schools all believe, I know UDC certainly does, in wraparound academic support. It starts in the summer before classes begin, and it goes throughout. Contracts classes with writing labs, so that it's helping you learn how to practice, but also helping you work on your legal writing so that you will be successful. I think that's something that's very important to think about, what kind of help you're going to get and support.
Any extra pointage? The other two last names.
Well, I would add one, because I do have students every year who show up, and let me say, I give a hug, and if you come to North Carolina Central, you're gonna get hugs from me on a regular basis. You get hugs because you need them. It is a rigorous and tough program. And I think that's another myth that's out there, that somehow you're getting something less than. And I want you to know that if you enroll at any of these law schools, and I think I can speak for all of my peer deans, you can expect to be worked harder than you have ever worked before in your life. So it will be a journey for you. And it will be an uphill journey, but that's because you're gonna get to the mountaintop, and we always want to stick a flag on top of the mountain. So.
But don't worry, we have a great eye for talent, and we see it right here.
That's right.
Okay, it's your turn. It's your turn. Questions from the audience. We have 10 minutes to ask questions, and this is your time to, you have 6 deans in front of you from law schools that you potentially may attend. Ask these questions. If not, I have another one to ask, but
What I would also just like to encourage, don't feel like you have to limit your questions to what you've heard here today, or that we were under time constraints. There might have been some questions or concerns or thoughts that you had coming in here. Gosh, no such thing as a stupid question.
right there. Go ahead. Yep, you stand up.
Hi, my name is Alexis Stafford, and I'm at Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama. And I was wondering, as deans of HBCU law schools, what area do you see that most HBCU undergrad students are lacking in when they come to your law schools?
I would say that the biggest thing that we work on is the ability to understand the intensity of law school and getting folks to understand. So we do actually a 4-week pre-law program where we give them, this is what law school is going to be like, bam, 4 weeks. And the shock, the speed of law school, the intensity of law school is something that I think is the issue that we try to ameliorate through our pre-law program.
I would say also, I think in general, I think this is not just for HBCU law schools, this is for all law schools. I think writing is critical. So much of what we think about as the work of lawyers, if you think about, okay, I'm gonna go to litigation, I'll be in court, I'll be standing up, arguing, so much of what you do as a lawyer is write. You have to write extremely well. And so often what we do is we give you lots of opportunities. I love what Dean Jones said about, we don't want to, and at Howard, we do not give you just that final exam. So you have opportunities to write in every class. You may write every week, right? So your professors will give you an opportunity to be able to write, and critical thinking skills. I think critical thinking skills, which you've been honing all of this time, but in law school, I think that ability to challenge to be able to say, okay, I've been given a piece of information, well, what is the evidence that supports this information? Where is this coming from? And to be able to be an independent critical thinker, I think those 3 skills are the skills that law students everywhere are most challenged to be able to deliver when they arrive.
Another question from Ms. Eichmann?
There's one other aspect of this, it's a different dimension. Part of this is the robust nature of the pre-law advisement programs at schools. And does your HBCU have a really strong pre-law advisement program to kind of steer you to what kind of things you need to do by way of preparation, including your course selection? And then that also goes into the question of bridge programs. And does your undergraduate school have any kind of bridge program with a law school or with a private institute that nurtures you to become better prepared for law school?
Thank you. Another question? Right here?
Hi, my name is Donna Murray. Yesterday we had a speaker that introduced us to specialized populations in law school. In her case, being a student with a learning disability. As I'm looking at this fair, there are many, many women in my age category. I see 2 specific populations coming in for law school. That is ones with special learning capabilities and the aging students. How are you all addressing those populations?
We do it because we actually have a really strong non-traditional presence. So one of the things that we do is we have a number of different enrollment options, because tied with that is the issue of financial resources. In fact, I met a young woman last night who told me that she's been a paralegal in Atlanta for many years. Her biggest concern is, can she afford to quit a job and come to law school? And I said, you don't have to quit your job. You come to Southern University Law Center, I'll find you a job, and we'll get you into the right program. Because we have been doing it for about 12 years. So we strongly support non-traditional students.
Our average age is 31, so we have a lot of folks coming in as a second career. But for the same reason, we have a part-time program so that you can come in and out of the part-time, full-time if you need to. And we also have something called a Jump Start, where you can come take a course in the summer before the school year begins, so that you can have a lighter load during the year, both if you need to work, you've got kids and other responsibilities, or if you just want to take it a little bit more slowly because you have learning issues. Get a Jump Start, take that course early on and lighten your load.
We have an evening program. We've had an evening program from the start. I actually like to teach. I like teaching in the evening more than I do in the day. A little while ago, or before the bottom fell out of the law school market, Northwestern University would not take anybody unless they had worked for a few years, and that was some wisdom. They since discarded that because they're all about making money in addition to teaching people. But I just want to emphasize, I used to call our evening program the part-time program, and I hate to pick on Lundy, but Lundy kind of shook her finger at me and said, this is not a part-time program, because she thought that calling it a part-time program, and I don't mean any disrespect to Shelley, and I don't
She's
think
educated me about a lot of things. I'm with Lundy on that, so I can get there.
So the thing is that the evening program is just as rigorous, if not more rigorous, than the daytime program. And so you will come out, but you could still come out in 4 years, keep your day job while you're in law school, and come out just as prepared as the daytime students or the full-time students. It's evening because it's not part-time. It's full-time. It's just in the evening.
We have room for one more question. I'm going to give it to Amanda. They're right over there. And hold on, before you ask the question, just remember the deans are going to be here, and there'll also be folks at the law fair tonight, so you have an opportunity to talk to folks afterwards. Go ahead.
Good evening to you all. My name is Adrian Elliott. I'm a graduate from Alabama State University in political science. My question is, how do you all see y'all's law schools transforming 20 years from now? How do you vision that from 2 decades from now?
Well, I can say this, we are going to be a law center that's going to have more advantageous programs for people who want to think about law from an interdisciplinary approach. So for example, we're encouraging folks to think about dual degree programs. We have a JD MPA, JD MBA that we're about to start. We're even going to do a JD MSW. In addition to that, we think for the future, online education is going to be a transformational event in terms of law school. And we've got to be able to harness the technology. Actually, North Carolina Central is doing it better than we are right now, but we're going to catch up with North Carolina Central.
Thank you for that, John.
Does anybody else want to add anything?
The delivery of technology, I think that's transforming the way that legal services are delivered. Generationally, we know that this generation definitely wants to be able to be more entrepreneurial. So you may not want to start at the bottom of the law firm as an associate and work to partner or work in government for 20 years before you get a promotion. Instead, many people are interested in being able to start their own law firms, global law firms, to create apps that work with providing legal services, to really think of their law degrees as one tool in their overall skill set to be great entrepreneurs. And so I think as we move forward, we plan to equip our students with all of the tools that you need. So not just the traditional learning of torts and contracts and criminal law, but also courses in entrepreneurship, courses in technology in the law, having ways to have trademark and IP clinics so that you learn how to protect your own intellectual property as a lawyer and the intellectual property of your clients. So really seeing law as one way to bring forth all of the different skills and talents that you have and one kind of piece of your toolbox, but not maybe the traditional way that you practice law. And you see a lot of people, including our moderator, who have been able to turn those law degrees into things. So one of our graduates is Charles King, huge entertainment agent at William Morris Agency. So even though he has a JD, he just started what's called Macro Ventures, and it is the first, supposed to be really the first kind of crowdfunding for Black media, television, and film. So he's using his law degree as a way, as a platform to help Black artists own their own intellectual property, own their own creative material, and we want to graduate 1,000 more Charles Kings.
You're millennials, and you are teaching us to think about work-life balance more effectively. And I think that that's a big change we're all embracing. How does this work for our student population? And I look forward to seeing how that shakes out, but it's something we're very focused on. How do we enhance the student experience for millennials?
Okay, I think on that note, we're going to say thank you very much to our panelists.
So we're going to, we have, okay, let's do
So this is what we're going to do. We do have plaques for our law school deans and our honored guests. So we're going to ask you all to come out. We're going to take photos in front of the separate people in class. And we have a special announcement in terms of the food is here. It's waiting for you. So we're going to try to do it in a way where it's orderly. The main thing I want to urge you all to do is get your food, your drinks, and come back, because we want to keep everything on track in terms of time. So. Okay, hello everyone. We're going to go starting with the back row, the back 4 rows.